When you look at practices that are struggling, right,
Mhm.
versus practices that are thriving, what role does this online visibility play in that gap
Mhm.
between these two types of practices?
Even though the game has changed, industries changed, the technologies of the world, the AI evolution, like all of those dramatic changes that we're going through right now, the fundamentals still hold true. And this is something I learned in business school a long time ago. And that when we're trying to plan financially for our business, right? So we have all these plans like, what do I need to do to deliver more, right? The first step of financial planning is marketing. You have to be able to drive in new business to your business. And if you don't have a good machine on the front end, you can't deliver at a high level and be reimbursed at a high level and then reinvest that into the business. So the first step is marketing in financial planning. And that's something for our audience out there to really get their mind around because that's fundamentals, right? And so what we tend to do is we gravitate to what we know, which is the operations of the business. We know how to treat patients. We know what we should look for there. We worry about the billing. We worry about insurance reimbursement. We're trying to like manage finances and all the pressures under that. And then we neglect the marketing on the front end. And so we don't have the ability to, one, drive in more business. And number two, brand and position ourselves in the marketplace as the go-to experts better than everybody else. And people will pay premium and top dollar for those. So that when you have very good marketing, branding and positioning and online positioning for your practice, you can control so much more in your practice. And this is where if you get so much business coming in, fire those low reimbursement insurances. Bring in more cash pay services, cash service lines, diagnostics, laser, dry needling, whatever you want to bring in. You have to increase the dollar value of each patient coming in. And the only way to do that is to have an awesome reputation, deliver great care, but then promote it well on the front end. And in today's world, if you're not visible online and you can't position yourself against these other competing clinics, but also lots of other online services, you don't have a chance.
People have their priorities reversed many times. And I'm going to give like an extreme example, right? Let's say that a practice has four PTs and other administrative staff, and all of a sudden, numbers of patients decrease significantly for a prolonged period of time. The knee-jerk reaction that many private practitioners will do, they'll try to save money by cutting down marketing. But I'll tell you, in that specific case, if the choice was between having a therapist less, because the fourth therapist is sitting around right now,
Mhm.
versus cutting down in marketing, you should go with letting one therapist go because you cannot use therapist and you're not going to be able to use them until you have more influx of patients or increase the frequency or something like that. But it's an extreme example. Hopefully,
Mhm.
you don't have to do any of this. You can have other approaches to really get enough patients in to cover your schedule. But people sometimes, when they cut down expenses, they're looking at cutting down first in marketing, which is
Mhm.
exactly the opposite of what they should be doing.
Yeah, perfect example there. And that's, we got to look at that. That's a reactionary. So we obviously have long-term business cycles and we have short-term business cycles. And so if you're in this roller coaster where, hey, things are cooking, you're busy, there's a wait list, it doesn't mean that next month you'll have the same problem, right? You might actually have less referrals, some doctors, they went on vacation, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, where did the new patients go? And then you've got your therapist twiddling their thumbs with many holes in the schedule. And you're like, okay, now let's do some marketing. Let's get this back up and running and get things busy. And then, so it's just roller coaster action that's happening. So how are we being thoughtful? How are we being planful in our practice for long-term success here? It's better to have a wait list so desired in the area and you're just trying to find more therapists, like that's a better condition to be in than the other way around, right? And so we shouldn't have to be laying off staff if we're being long-term planful with our marketing, with our investments back into the business. But you're right, in those moments, if that does happen, don't pull back on your marketing. Your biggest cost in your business is labor. So where can you trim back on labor in order to make you more viable, more profitable in the business, right? That's kind of the first step. So yeah, you're right that that often happens.